Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Vicky Hargraves aho, and welcome to the Education Hub's webinar for this evening. If you're new to the Education Hub, and I would like to let you know about some of the work that we do and some of the work that we have online. So we're an organisation committed to sharing the impacts and the evidence from research with teachers across the school sector and also the Early Childhood Centre. And we also run this awesome series of webinars. And tonight we have a very special webinar because it was so popular when we ran it before. We're focusing on success for our Māori akonga, but successful Māori akonga as Māori. And we have Janelle Rikiwaka here to talk to us. Now, Janelle has over 15 years experience in cultural competency work and Te Ao Māori advisory. And she's deeply committed and deeply passionate about enabling individuals, teams, schools and businesses who are on the journey to be culturally responsive. And we're just so delighted to have you with us again, Janelle. Thank you so much.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real privilege to be with you all this evening. It's a bit makachiri here in Ōtautahi, so really nice to be in this webinar, and thank you so much Education Hub for inviting me back. I might start our session, if that's okay, Vicky, with a karakia, and then I'll introduce myself and pass the mic back to you. But kia ora koutou, I can't see you, but I know you are in there. I can see the wee number down the bottom, and I'm always very humbled and very blessed and very grateful to those of you that take time out of your home time after a long day to come along and have a kōrero. So e mihi ana ki a koutou, māku e karakia mā tātou, tūtaua mai runga, tūtaua mai raro, tūtaua mai roto, tūtaua mai waho, kia tau ai te mauritu, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko ai au, he uri tēnei no tainoi waka, no whaingaroa ahau, engari pākeki ana au ki o tautahi, e noho tonu ana au I konei, ko Janelle Rikiwaka tōku ingoa, anei au e mihi atu kia koutou katoa I tēnei pō. Ngā mihi, kia ora.
Kia ora, Janelle. Thank you. Well, let's get started because I know we have heaps to discuss and really interested to hear some of your kōrero tonight. So we talked before, and if anyone hasn't seen that webinar, you can find it in our archives. Fantastic webinar, very, very inspiring. And I want to start tonight just by revisiting some of the values that we talked about in that webinar, just to kind of, set our foundation for these important values that kind of underpin the practices that we want to create for our whānau Māori and our akonga Māori. So these values were from Te Tiriti o Waitangi. I remember them. They were I've lost my list. There was Ōrītitanga, there was Rangatiratanga and Kāwanatanga. And yeah, I wondered if you wanted to start us off tonight by just visiting those values with us and explaining a bit more about them.
Ka pai. Yes, very important. So the articles of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the first being kāwanatanga or honourable governance, the second being rangatiratanga, and the third being ōritetanga. And then, of course, we have the fourth article, which has had lots of kōrero about the fourth article, and there's various perspectives on that. So I'll circle back to that in a wee second. But kāwanatanga, honourable governance, for me, there's a difference between governance and honourable governance. And for me, honourable governance is about governing in a way that has those that you have kaitiaki for, that you have care for at the centre of what you're doing. So making decisions alongside, with and by those who will need to live by those decisions or be impacted by those decisions, and informed by the needs and aspirations of the greater tribe, so to speak, or the greater group. So honourable governance, and I think we all have governance roles, right? So it's not just necessarily like a board whose role is governance, but I think governance is really about kaitiakitanga. It's about how we care for and protect those that are in our care. So that's Article 1. Article 2, rangatiratanga, and this one's a really interesting one. It's a beautiful kupu rangatiratanga, and at its sort of root word, I guess, is rangatira, and you may know that kupu. That's the kupu that we, our chiefs were known by. They were called rangatira. Nowadays, we often use it as a term of reverence for someone important or someone who has done something wonderful, or it's a great honourable term, if you like. And the word rangatira for chief or for leader comes from, if you break it up, ranga comes from rāranga, or to weave. And tira is a group of people. So similar to kapa or rōpū, tira is a group. So a great leader from a Māori perspective is someone who can weave people together. And I think that in of itself is a window to the values of Te Ao Māori, right? So rangatiratanga in the tiriti or waitangi context is very specifically about mana motuhake for Māori. So this was a commitment from the Crown that Māori could continue to retain, and I stress the word retain rather than be given, retain their ability to be self-governing, to be self-determining. And so it's quite an important article of Te Tiriti. It's all important, but that one in particular allowed Māori to feel safe in the knowledge that they would retain their mana that they had enjoyed for many hundreds and hundreds of years. The third article, Ōritetanga, is about equity, and essentially in the Te Tiriti or Waitangi context, that was about ensuring that no one of those two groups, tangata whenua and tangata tiriti, would be privileged over the other, that there would be a commitment, an ongoing commitment to equity. And then, of course, the fourth article that I said was somewhat controversial and that there are differing perspectives about it was a verbal agreement, and that was for everybody to enjoy the right to their cultural and religious and spiritual freedom. So the right to believe and practice your cultural and spiritual beliefs. And that in of itself is Te Tiriti or Waitangi. It's probably topical at the moment. We're at a time in our history where probably more so now than in my lifetime that I can remember, it is relatively front of mind in terms of the things that we are hearing, the things that we are seeing. So it's really important that people take some time to understand the intent of Te Tiriti, but more importantly, how we can embody and commit to that intent today. So to simplify it for you, and this is, I think, the intent of Te Tiriti or Waitangi is as true today as it was in 1840. And that's what I keep front of mind. That's kind of my guiding po. If I can stay true to this, then that's going to be good for our nation and for everybody. And the intent of Te Tiriti was that it was an agreement for the peaceful coexistence of two groups of people, each while retaining their cultural identity. And that is tangata whenua and tangata tiriti. And peaceful coexistence, right? Just like a marriage, peacefully coexisting.
It reminds me of what when you explained to us about rangatira before. It's weaving together those two cultures in a peaceful coexistence. Yeah, absolutely.
I just had to check my cup then. I've got I won't go there. I've got another cup with something else written on it, and I was like, oh, I should just check which one I in my hand as I'm showing it up on the camera.
You're good. Okay, so those are the principles that we know we can try to keep in mind, but it is about kind of reinterpreting them for our particular context too, isn't it? So one thing that we really wanted to focus on in this webinar, because it was of such interest to everyone in the last webinar, was about this idea of drawing on a partnership with our Māori whānau and kura, perhaps, or perhaps other Mana Whenua, and using those principles, thinking about kāwanatanga, rangatiratanga, and ōritikanga, to create those relationships and to make sure that we really are creating a genuine partnership that embodies those values.
Absolutely. So let's unpack this a little bit more. So first of all, I'm on a bit of a mission to kind of rid from our vocabulary the word consultation. Consultation for many Māori is a bit of a trigger word. It's something we've heard for a long time, couple of 100 years, and it hasn't got a good sort of past experience for us, in the sense that consultation, when I consulted my husband about the new shoes, I'd already bought them. They're in the cupboard. And so consultation is really quite low level. It's, generally speaking, it's somebody's already done something and they just want to know what you think of it. So if you're going to consult me on the new strategic plan, then you've already written the strategic plan and you just want to know what I think about it. What it says, what the undertone of it says, whether you like it or not, and whether you intended this or not, was that we didn't trust you enough or have enough faith in your expertise or knowledge or what you could bring to this to have you in the room from the outset. And so it's a bit of a trigger word. I prefer engagement, but whatever word you find, I just think consultation, we've wrecked that word essentially in terms of relationships with Māori, and we need to shift that to the side. Genuine engagement requires checking all egos at the door, and it requires us thinking more about the other person potentially than ourselves and what our agendas are and what we need from the relationship. The question I think you should take to genuine engagement is, what can I offer you? How can I support you? And that will come through in terms of that genuine part. But I really want to make this clear. And I think schools need to deeply understand this. The history of our nation, and in particular, the history of education, its whakapapa, its roots, its beginning, and the impact that has had on successive generations of Māori is huge. It is huge, it is deep, it is hurtful. And so what I don't think we think about is, between that parent who's in their car or at the front gate of the school picking their child up and the front door of the office, would require that parent or that whānau to wade through trauma up to their eyeballs just to get to you to have a conversation. And why would we ask that of our parents without deep trust in place first? So what I want to say to schools is, you are going to have to go past the halfway mark. You know, that saying of meet me halfway. Well, actually, because of some of the education trauma for whānau Māori, you're going to have to go way past the halfway. I would argue you have to go right to their door. And the very first question actually should be, kia ora, well, after you introduce yourself, I really want to have a conversation with you about how we and I can best support you in your tamaiti. So the question has to come from that humble, genuine space. So engaging whānau Māori requires you actually to be quite critical and of yourselves and your practice and your image and your mauri, in a sense. And what I mean by that is, mauri is like a life force. It's I try to think about words in Reo Pākehā or even in other languages that might equate to mauri, and it's a little bit tricky, but in a sense, an aspect of mauri is kind of vibe. It's a feeling. I talk about my Māori meter. Sometimes I talk about, oh, my Māori meter doesn't like it in here. The vibes, just ambiance. I don't know, the feeling, the vibe, the Māori of a space and that belongs to people, buildings, spaces, groups of people have Māori. Some inanimate objects have Māori as well. So what kind of Māori is your kura giving off, is the question I want you to ask yourselves. What does it feel like here? Because actually, Māori by nature lead by things that just feel, there's often times, in fact, I was in a meeting today and someone said, what do you think of this wording? And it was in a policy. And I said, I don't know what I don't like about it. I just don't like about it. I just don't like it. I didn't have the words, but my Māori meter was telling me, this isn't right. And then I could think about it deeper and give them an explanation why it wasn't right. But actually, Māori is it's a really high, of high importance to us in terms of sitting and being and connecting in a space. So I really want to encourage you to have a think about the Māori of your kura. What does it feel like? What does it feel like if you're a Māori mother or father or kaumātua and you go to our website? How does our newsletter make you feel? How does it walking around our school make you feel? Does it make you feel like you should leave the most precious people in your entire world in our care? How do you feel in these spaces? How do you feel when you walk into the office? How do you feel when you ring up? Because Māori is everything. It's a huge part of how we live our lives. So engaging with whānau, you want to start with a Māori meter. Check your Māori meter. Think about engagement and not consultation. And lastly, go way past halfway and keep going and keep going and keep showing up and build trust, because for Māori, everything moves at the speed of trust. So if you are not having any success engaging your whānau, there's not enough trust. So you have to actually think about, how can I build trust, and take a step back. I'm just going to go and have a coffee and talk about anything and everything except their child, except education, except achievement. I'm just going to keep building relationships till I feel it's appropriate to have some of those conversations that we might need to have.
That's the Māori meter again, isn't it? Knowing when that's there and that you can make those conversations. And I like what you're saying about going more than halfway, and really, because what that speaks to, even as a non-Māori, somebody who really wants to get to know me and keeps turning up and keeps asking me how I am and how I'm feeling, I'm going to be aware that this is a deep intention for relationship rather than for accessing some knowledge or yeah.
And I don't think one or two hui or a couple of conversations is going to go far enough to begin to heal, 150 years of trauma. So it's going to require for a wee while to go past halfway, to go to your door, to knock on, to be in your space. And then of course, whānau hui are a great start, but they're not the full stop in terms of engaging with Māori. And I think that's another wee trap that some of our kura have fallen into. How do you engage with Māori? We have whānau hui twice a year. Yeah, how else? So it can't be just a full stop, because whānau hui are fantastic, but how else could you be engaging? What else does that look like? I think is really important. In terms of Mana Whenua, I'll just say this quickly, because I've taken a wee while talking about whānau, but they really are something I'm passionate about. But in terms of Mana Whenua, there's no sort of, step-by-step guide to engaging with Mana Whenua, because they're all different. And far be it from me to say how to engage in a way that's appropriate to every single Mana Whenua. So one thing I would say, just a wee tip, some of the mistakes that I know are made, and this is because I have many close friends who sit in Mana Whenua spaces, and they'll say to me, often the first time they hear from schools, they've got their hand up. The first time they even get any contact from a school, kia ora, can you please come and name our buildings? Can you please come and help us with our Te Tiriti strategy? Can you please do a mihi whakatau for us for blah, blah? And that's, I guess, to give you the equivalent, that's like me banging on your door, having lived next door to you for years, and the first thing out of my mouth is, can I have a cup of sugar? Like it's just rude. Like, that's your home, and for me to go in there and say, can I have a cup of sugar with my hand out? Introduce yourself. I want schools to ask themselves, what can we offer Mana Whenua? How can we support them with their aspirations and their strategy and their goals, and what they wish for their tamariki? We're in their home. How could we reciprocate the manaakitanga that we have been shown for the length of time our kura's been here? What can we do? And I've got lots of ideas, but it's really about your community sitting down and saying, how could we support Mana Whenua? What does that look like?
That's so powerful to turn that on its head, not, you know, what can we take or what can you give us, but what can we give you? Because immediately you're going to start learning about some of the values and what's important without having this expectation that it needs to be given. And yeah, coming from that place of genuine aroha and afi, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, and I can tell you there's not a marae on this any whenua anywhere in this country that doesn't have gardens that need weeding or dishes that need drying or storerooms that need cleaning out. Like that kind of service, teaching our tamariki, but being immersed in that context, contacting your local marae to say, hey, you got any fence posts that need to be painted? Or, we can bring a group of kids down and, or take some baking down, or there's always something that can be given to show that manaaki, to reciprocate that manaakitanga. And I think it's important that we teach our kids about that as well.
Absolutely. So I know you've got lots to share with us, but also in our last webinar, we talked quite a lot about, you talked a lot about creating partnerships across sort of schools and whānau Māori. But I wondered if you're an individual teacher and this is something that you really want to further in your own practice, what can individual teachers be doing to create those relationships with whānau Māori?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think at the end of the day, the highest, most valuable thing in a sense in Te Ao Māori is mana. And so it's about honouring the mana of every child, but understanding that their mana is their own mana is almost an embodiment. It's a collective mana of all those around them. So what I mean by that is I've done a lot of work in two worlds, particularly helping and supporting non-Māori to understand aspects of Te Ao Māori in a way that can help them to do their job or live their life or engage and have positive relationships with Māori. One of the biggest, there's lots of differences between the worlds, between a Māori world and a Pākehā world or a non-Māori world. One of the ones that I learned quite quickly was quite a stark difference is this idea of collective identity. So Māori, by the nature of being tribal people, I think, and by who we are, our values and our tikanga, our identity is a shared identity. And what I mean by that is I am we. So I'm the physical embodiment today of generations of my ancestors, starting with my parents and going all the way back, of their dreams, their aspirations, their experiences, their wisdom. Like it's all in me, like I'm just the embodiment. And so I have this collective identity. And we think and act like that. I think and act in the collective. And it seems to be something we naturally do, and we don't even notice it about ourselves. It's just a thing. But the Western world is built on this kind of hierarchy of survival of the fittest, right? It's about I look after me and mine. And that's quite a stark difference. I look after me and mine. My job is me and my people and the people I love in my little circle. So that's quite different. And mana in a collective sense, when I think about an individual teacher in a school who is wishing to engage better with their Māori kaiako and Māori whānau, the very first step has to be just understanding mana and honouring mana. Every single child is born with mana. Every single person in the world is born with mana. You can get more mana if you do things and act in ways and are kind and loving. And some people get more mana by doing amazing things. Some people get, increase their mana just by being good friends. Like there's no sort of measure of that, but you can get more mana and your mana can decrease as well equally for doing things that aren't so good. So if teachers could look at every single child and understand that tama right there is the embodiment of generations of greatness. Like literally come at them with that. I see you. I see your mana. I see your collective wisdom and mātauranga. If you can start your relationships off genuinely honoring the mana of every child, I just think that that's teachers who teach from the heart. That's teachers who teach people, who teach children to be great people. You know, it's relationships are everything. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. So honoring the mana of each child and whānau at a very deep and transparent way is going to go leaps and bounds. And to give you the harsh reality, that we know that there are teachers, sadly, that will teach kids as kids. Like this is just 2024's cohort of 30 kids. And yes, I know your name and I know this much about you, but they're not really teaching that child, you know, and honoring the manner of that child and that collective wisdom around them. So I guess in its simplest form, see those kids and honor their mana.
Mm. And I sense
Make
that
it sound easy, don't I? It's not easy. I get it. It's not.
no, it's not, but it's you're suggesting there's just an attitude that if we can just sort of create the right, because I think you know, big things grow from small things. So just, you know, having that attitude of being, you know, genuinely and humble, being genuinely honored to have this child in your class and expressing that to whānau, you're saying would just be an amazing start and open those relationships up. Yeah.
And, you know, check your Māori meter and check their Māori meter, you know, because if the relationship isn't working, that's more than just, you know, there's something else. You've got to work at them. Yeah. And know that for us, relationships is everything. It's just everything. So getting that right is the be all and the end all.
I sense that it's partly about coming at these relationships without an agenda as well.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
just having absolutely no agenda other than I want to create a relationship with you while your child is in my class. Yeah.
And I think when I think about the akonga Māori that I taught, I guess there was an ease between us because I was Māori. And if you unpack that, it wasn't necessarily that they just liked Māori people better. It's that they looked at me and there was this undertone of she gets it, you know, she gets it. That's all it was. It was like she gets me and she gets my life and she's not going to judge it. She gets what it's like to be Māori and she sees me and she's, you know, so yes, that was innate in me, but I don't think those things can't be a practice that anybody could take on. We just have to, if you're non-Māori, you just have to articulate them in a way because they just trusted, you know, they could see she's Māori, she gets it. You're going to have to be more overt in that, whereas I didn't have to be. It was just a thing that we had together, I guess. The sense of you're my people, essentially. Yeah.
So another, if I can switch topics, another thing we talked about, or you talked about, sorry, in the last webinar, was this idea of re-indigenizing tamariki Māori or akonga Māori in our classrooms, because we were talking about what is success for Māori and looking much, much deeper into success for Māori rather than just thinking, you know, what is their literacy achievement, what is their mathematics achievement, and yeah, so we were really interested in the way that you conceptualized success for Māori as Māori. And this concept of re-indigenization of our Māori akonga. So could you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. And if you haven't yet, please go and read. Anne Milne has done a piece of work recently, and she's talking about our mokopuna and whose mokopuna are they? I think it's called. Go and read it.
You have to put a link up.
Yeah. Yes, she uses the term indigenizing, which I think we're on the same page. I'm talking about re-indigenizing, I guess, because you know, this idea that they're lost through colonization. So how do we do that? So colonization essentially was the vehicle by which our reo was taken, and much of the mātauranga was not innate and not being able to be transmitted how it had been intergenerationally transmitted. So if colonization took those things and took the opportunity for those things to happen as they had always happened, then what is the opportunity now? And unfortunately, I love the education system. It's been part of my life. At the end of the day, the education system was weaponized effectively. They weaponized it to colonize and to assimilate. So what would it be if we re-engaged it to re-indigenize? What if it became the vehicle by which we supported Māori to be re-indigenized? And I've thought about, like, people have said, well, what are the ingredients in the re-indigenization cake? And I started thinking about them kind of like po. And if you'll bear with me 2 seconds, I'll share a wee slide with you because I have got some content on this. Talking about re-indigenization po, for me, Reo Māori is always going to be one, because language is always going to be a window to culture. So Te Reo Māori and the integration of Te Reo Māori into your everyday kōrero. And I want to say that's more than these individual lessons on Te Reo Māori. And I think they are valuable. This is about actually increasing the amount of reo we use in everyday conversations, everyday kōrero, our instructional language with kids, but just our kōrero to each other, the kōrero in the staff room during assembly, really starting to level up our integration of reo Māori into our everyday kōrero. And I've put tikanga a iwi, which you might know that term from the term for the social studies curriculum, but what I actually mean here is about the tikanga of iwi, the tikanga of hapu, and understanding that wherever you are in the world, there's tikanga associated with iwi and hapu that you should learn about, because that's where you live. You're in their home. If I come to stay at your house, I would want to know how you fold your towels if I'm folding your washing. You know, do you put the bath mat up or does it stay on the floor? Those kinds of, those tikanga, those everyday practices, I'm in your home, I should know them. So knowing and observing the tikanga of the local Mana Whenua where you live is going to be vital. And then kids will, and whānau will have their own tikanga and their own iwi tikanga as well that they may choose to be living at home. Mātauranga, that's mātauranga Māori, and I'm sure I don't need to explain that to you, especially if you work in education. That's about Indigenous knowledge and ensuring that we incorporate Māori worldviews, perspectives, and knowledge to give a more balanced perspective and learning experience for our akonga. Particularly our kids learning in and about their culture. So immersed in and about. I want to learn about being Māori. And I'm going to need to relearn that, although it's in my knowledge back here and my ancestors, I may not have that. So I'm going to need to relearn about my culture, about being Māori. And the best way to do that is to learn in te ao Māori about being Māori. And that's what I mean by in and about. Whakapapa, understanding my roots, my whakapapa, my maunga, my awa, you know, that deep connection to identity, strengthening my understanding about my turanga waiwai and where my bones are, where my people are, and what that looks like is going to be vital to being re-indigenized. And the last one, and please know this isn't an exhaustive list, this is just me thinking, what are those big po? The last one is taiao and the environment. It is so central to te ao Māori, to everything about being Māori and to our people's language, culture and identity, that this needs to be a po, because we need to understand as Māori the spiritual connection we have with our taiao. Our values are derived from there. Mātauranga Māori is born out of our interaction with the taiao. That's where Mātauranga Māori comes from. And so understanding that spiritual connection with our taiao is going to be really important. And so just to quickly show you, if we say as a kura, this is just me kind of ideating, if you like, if we wanted to, instead of just solely measuring the academic achievement of Māori kids and suggesting that that is success, I think that's an aspect of success. It is not the only part of success, however, that Māori are interested in. As a mother, I want to know how connected my child is to language, culture, and identity, and how many opportunities could you give them at your school for them to be able to strengthen that connection. That is success as Māori for me as a mum. So if we took some of those po, and you'll see I've put them in there, whakapapa, te reo Māori, tikanga, mātaranga Māori, wairua. And again, wairua could be certainly another po. There, you can add any po you like. You could put your uara, your school's values in there, and taiao. And I've taken just a wee framework at the top there, pia, mohio, marama, matato. So pia is a kupu for novice, someone who's learning, who's beginning their learning journey potentially. And mohio is to know, marama to understand, and matato to be proficient. So I know it, and maybe I've got a deeper understanding of it. I understand it, and matato to be proficient. So I just sort of took that matrix to measure, and this could be a self-assessment in terms of whakapapa, in terms of my sense of connection to my whakapapa, my knowledge of my whakapapa. Where do I think I am? And you could do this and at time intervals if you want. You could measure and show sort of later on in the year or the end of the year or the next year. You could measure this over time in terms of knowledge, proficiency, confidence in reo Māori, my understanding of tikanga, my ability to follow, adhere, and embody tikanga. Because it's one thing to know, but it's another thing to actually be able to practice tikanga. Mātaranga Māori, my connection to Māori spirituality, those kinds of things. There's some funny, I thought it was funny research into presenting something on a horizontal graph. There's some research to say that when it's vertical, it looks like pass-fail, but actually you flip it and you can put the same data that way and it doesn't read the same way. And I don't know why, but when I look at this, it doesn't feel like that. Even if it did say, you know, at, below, well below, whatever those awful words that we used to use years ago with, you know, it still reads differently when you look at it like this. So that's why I flipped it this way, if you're wondering, because I want to, like, I think it's because a journey just keeps going that way. We see a walk could just carry on forever, whereas this seems to have an infinite top and a bottom. I don't know if that makes our brain look at it differently, but for me, I guess if we're talking about re-indigenizing akonga Māori, the question I'd love you to go away with is, what are our po as a kura, as a hapuri, as in collaboration? What is Mana Whenua's po? You know, what are their re-indigenization po? What might they be? How could we decide what those po are? And then secondly, how do we create opportunities for akonga Māori and everybody, but actually for akonga Māori, as well as show a story to our whānau about how we've been successful in that way. So sorry, I diverted with a couple of slides, but I thought they might help me talk about what I wanted to talk about.
They were wonderful, because as I started to jot down the next question to ask you, you answered it. I just want to invite people listening tonight, if they have questions, to please type them in the chat, because we are fast running out of time, and I know there might be some questions for you, Janelle. So, but as I was listening to you, I was thinking that just as you said, you know, who's assessing who here? Is it for the teacher to assess, you know, how well akonga Māori are learning their Indigenous values and mātaranga, And I've thought back to what you said before about kind of consulting, you know, and if a teacher kind of created this and said, you know, is this where you think you fit, as opposed to, you know, allowing the akonga for themselves and their whānau too, perhaps to assess how well the school is doing in this this aim that they have for supporting students to re-indigenize themselves, you know, themselves through the opportunities at school.
I love that idea. And I would shake the hand of a very brave school who allowed their akonga Māori and their whānau to assess how well their school was doing. I really would, because I could tell, you know, that would be very brave and bold. Not all schools would be open to that, but man, how far would that go in terms of developing trusting relationships, you know, allowing a real open, robust kōrero and transparent kōrero about how well we're doing for your kids. I think it's important to ask that question. Like at the end of the day, when people say we really want to know how well we're doing in terms of akonga Māori, I promise you, your Māori kids will tell you if you ask them. We're nothing but honest, brutally honest at times. So my favorite question to ask Māori kids is really simple, and you can ask this to 5-year-olds. What's it like to be Māori at this school? Just that. Just ask them that. And who is it the person that asks? Be mindful about that, you know, like, is it the principal? Are they going to get the same answers as the teacher does? Or do you engage a member of your community to go, hey, could you ask some of our kids? Or, think about the dynamics of your kura and who could ask that question. But I promise you, they'll tell you, what's it like to be Māori here? I'll tell you.
Absolutely. I think, again, that just reinforces what you said about trust and that isn't always easy, to be honest, if that relationship isn't solid trust. I also want to draw you back to another idea, just because we kind of presented this webinar as about helping teachers, helping kaiako and kaiwakahare to think about how to make their kura safe and empowering spaces for all children. And I'm wondering how this kaupapa that you're presenting to us can support all akonga, so our non-Māori students too. How do you see these approaches being embedded in a school, supporting everyone?
Absolutely. And it's such a powerful question. And anyone who's been in education for a while, like I have, will remember, and you may have been around when it first came out, but Russell Bishop used to say, what works for Māori will work for everybody. I still think that's as true today, because Māori at its heart is a values-based people. We're people, we're relationship people. We've got Māori meters and spiritual beliefs and cultural practices, and so we're very holistic in that sense. And that's what he means. If we get it right for Māori, the things that they value the most are important to mankind, essentially, or womankind, or they, you know, oh gosh, I need to work on a new terminology for man and womankind, for people of the world. We need to make sure we get our pronouns inclusive, for all people of the world. So at the end of the day, I think understanding that there are aspects of Te Ao Māori that are for everybody in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Te Reo Māori is for everybody. Aspects of Mātauranga Māori are for everybody. And the reason I'm saying aspects is because there is still some knowledge that safely still should be held by Māori. For the safety, actually, of non-Māori, there's some things you potentially shouldn't go around knowing and talking about with some confidence. You know, there's some things that may still be passed on via whakapapa between whānau and between iwi that they wish to remain somewhat private within their whakapapa. So, but a lot of aspects of Mātauranga Māori and Te Ao Māori are a koha for the world, for anybody who is here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, this is the first people of our nation. This is the beautiful, unique, amazing First Nations, Indigenous people of Aotearoa tangata whenua, honouring that unique aspect of Aotearoa and flexing our Aotearoatanga, if you like, is something we should all take great pride in. So coming back to those po, I believe they are essential to the protection and revitalisation of te ao Māori for Aotearoa, as well as re-indigenization po for Māori. You just might deliver them slightly differently, and you might measure them, if you like, for lack of a better word, slightly differently. So that te reo Māori po for non-Māori kids is simply about them potentially assessing their confidence and capability to kōrero Māori. Mātauranga Māori might be them identifying some of the aspects of Mātauranga Māori that they have learned during the year and how confident they feel in that space. Their knowledge of tikanga Māori practices at our kura. We don't put hats on tables. We don't sit on tables. You know, so that's for any child in our kura. But I think just being mindful about how that is presented and how you might ask your tamariki to reflect on that and how you might measure that might be slightly different, and just allowing for that. And I think that's for a school to have a conversation about. So it's for everybody, but there's a difference in how different people interact in those spaces. Māori need to engage in that space in a specific way, and that will be different to our non-Māori kids, but essentially lots of those po are for everybody.
I think it comes back to ōritatanga that you talked about, because to create sort of, a more equitable future for everyone, it doesn't mean we treat everybody the same and give them. So, I mean, I think for me, that's what I'm hearing in what you're saying. But I think you've given us such powerful messages, and I love the reflective questions that you've thrown at us throughout this webinar. So much to think about, and I think I'm going to go and make a list of them. I wondered if you wanted to give us some final words, maybe some, the key idea that you want teachers to take away and leaders to take away from this webinar tonight. If there's, what's going to be the real key value or the real key question to focus on to make the biggest impact, I suppose.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go in a slightly different, because I really want to finish on an uplifting, uplifting note. I want to just talk about the generation that is emerging into the workforce. Some have just gone into the workforce, but in the next few years, the last couple of years into the next few years, we're about to see emerging into the workforce a generation of Māori that will be unlike one we have seen in many, many years. So our kura kids, our kohanga kids are coming of the age. We're about to see, children brought up in te ao Māori coming into mainstream jobs and into the workforce. And this is amazing. But what I mean by that is, for me, I was predominantly brought up in te ao Pākehā. I knew about te ao Māori, and I had moments where I dipped my toes in during childhood. But it wasn't until I became an adult that I began to practice walking in both worlds. And by practice walking in both worlds, I mean I had my training wheels on in te ao Māori. Pretty confident in te ao Pākehā. It's everywhere. Like, that's how I grew up. So I was confident here and I was learning in this space. And now I feel fairly confident I can move between those worlds fairly seamlessly, to varying degrees of confidence in both worlds. We have emerging now and coming the first generation, I guess, that we are seeing who have been born confident in this world. And I cannot I cannot stress to you enough the difference that it is. So we are seeing our tamariki who are now deeply confident in a Māori world, and to have varying degrees of confidence in the Pākehā world. So almost the flipped script, right? What that means is they don't have the same trauma, the same identity trauma as the generations that have gone before them. And they are strong and savvy and matatau I te reo Māori, and they are confident in a Māori world, and they're hitting the workforce. They're going to run this country one day. They're going to change the world. They are literally going to change the world. And I'm not so sure everybody's quite prepared for them. So my daughter is in Kura Kaupapa Māori. She got a triple dose of sass. And unlike my generation, who, when I reflect on my journey into the workforce, we were probably a little bit less than my dad's generation, but we were still on the tail end of the head down, be quiet, put up with whatever's coming your way. It's just how the world is. It's just what being Māori is. You know, my dad was very much in that generation, and we were at the tail end of it, in the sense that we just took a job because we were brought up. You take a job and you work, and it doesn't matter if you like your job, you just get a job and you work hard. Not these kids. They will not suffer anything that is going to penetrate their beliefs and their confidence in a Māori world. They'll just walk. They'll just go, no, I'm not putting up with this, I'm out. You know, it won't be a world for them. So I'm here for it. They're going to change the world. I'm super excited about it is a absolute celebration for everybody in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that these kids are emerging already confident in a Māori world. We've still got a long way to go, but I'm so excited. I'm here for it. They're going to change the world. So if we can continue to grow those tamariki, then we're contributing to that.
Oh, amazing. Yes, thank you. Such a beautiful kōrero, such a lovely vision that and I think you're so right. I think that's definitely what we can see in our akonga Māori. And yes, just I know I've had some comments that it was hard to log into this webinar initially, so some people missed the beginning. Don't worry, it has been recorded, and we will put that recording up on the website in the next couple of days. So if you want to listen again, or you know, find bits that you've missed, you're very, very welcome to. Janelle, thank you so much. Thank you for the kōrero. Thank you for the patai that we can go away and think about. And thank you for the inspiration. I think that's really important, because this is hard mahi for us, especially if you are non-Māori. And you know, imagine if you are Māori too, it's probably not that easy either. So just having somebody who just conveys that belief that this is possible and this is doable and we can make this work in our kura. Yeah, tēnā koe, tēnā koe, kia ora. Thank you so much from us.
Kia ora. Tēnā koutou. I'm so sorry I can't necessarily get to see all of your chat remarks, and when it closes I won't get to see them. So if you find me on somewhere and you want to send me a message, please do. It is always humbling to me, you know, looking at the numbers, 125 of you. Man, my heart's happy. Like, I just keep thinking about, if that's 125 teachers and leaders and they all have 20, 30, 40, 60 kids in their kaitiaki, you know, we're changing the world, whānau. You're changing the world. You turned up tonight, you came here. You could be sitting in front of the TV, but you're not. You're here for your Māori kids. They may not thank you, but I will. I see you. I see the difference you're trying to make in the world, in the healing that we're all doing. But man, we are many people and one nation, and I'm here for the future. It's going to be super exciting. E mihi ana kia kai. Te māku I karakia hei whakakapi tā tātou kōrero I te pōnei. E mihi ana kia koutou. Whakairia, Ko wari ai. I've been on holiday e hoa mā. I haven't said my karakia for a wee while. Hang on. Whakairia te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia turuki, whakataha ai, kia turuki, whakataha ai. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e, kia ora. Ngā mihi.
Ngā mihi nui, Janelle, and pō Māori e tātou. Kia ora.
Mō Māori e.